need to go to the recording studio and make coffee. Which is a rite of passage. Everyone has to do it. I did it, And
and I think that's important. Let's
yeah.
just highlight this, and it's very obvious again, but from 16, that was 6 years that you had absolutely worked your backside off to get to this position.
Sure.
And that's so important because it's not just going to come to you. You really do have to put in the work and the hours, and I think that's what they acknowledged or recognized in yourself.
Yeah, and people think like, oh, at 22, starting to work for, or 22, 23, when I started to work for Tony, that I just somehow walked into it.
No,
I'm like, that's
no
not,
way.
that's
You've got to put
not
in
the
that
case.
work.
Tony doesn't let you work for him if you have no idea what you're doing.
And especially as a female. Again, I
Right.
don't want to keep harping on, but that was the reality of it. So you really did have to put in that work.
Sure.
Okay, so sorry. So that's when. So then, how did the Tony thing come up then? So you were obviously in the right place, right time. You had the CV.
Yeah.
And then.
So he asked for a list of like producers that Nixon Son asked for a list of producers I admired, and Tony was at the top of the list. I mean, I grew up listening to Bowie and T-Rex and all those records, and just like worshipped those productions. And his string arrangements and all of it, and was like, okay, like I'll just pull a name out of my ass.
Let's do it.
I'm
Let's
sure.
do it.
And he goes, oh, I know Tony. I'll email him. So he emailed him, and we didn't hear back for a while because they were getting ready to release the next day, and it was like lockdown at Camp Bowie. Like no one talked to anyone. Waiting. It was his first record in 10 years. And that album came out, and then Tony emailed me and said, come in, bring a reel, and let's talk. And came in, brought a reel, we talked. He said, cool, like I'm gonna take you on as my intern. And he hired me full-time after a month. And my first day on the job was like the first day I met Bowie. It was like insane.
What?
It was just, yeah.
What year was this?
This was 2013.
Okay. And was this the last album?
So when I started, we were working on a Louis Vuitton advert, which was the song I'd Rather Be High, which was on the next day. And then we did the bonus tracks for the next day.
Okay.
So that was the first thing we did.
Right.
Then we did like a compilation with 2 new songs, which was called Nothing Has Changed. And then we started a Black Star. So I kind of did 3 projects with him, but Black Star was a good chunk of time.
So I sort of feel a bit breathless just hearing that. How do you actually cope with Erin? This is David. What do you do?
I mean, I had posters of him on my walls growing up. Like it was like, and I had met some people before, but no one on that level. And Tony kind of sat me down, but he didn't tell me like before the day I got there because he didn't want me to panic. So he sat me down. It was a test. He sat me down and was like, I just wanted to let you know, like, Bowie's coming in today. Like, just, this is what you should do. You'll probably just sit outside of the room, and run errands or something, which was not, David invited me in the room, like, from day one, and I never left, But I just, it was a trip. But then very quickly, it just became like, it was just David. He was like, my other mentor. He was like a,
How was he with you?
Amazing.
And to work with, what was he? We all know David Bowie, the persona,
sure.
But in the studio, how was that?
I mean, funny as can be, like real British humor. Like I mean, just a vault of British humor, and so like curious as a person, like wanted to know, knew so much about history and read every book and was never self-referential, really like, and I think that's what made him so great is he was constantly wanting to know what the new cool thing was, what I was listening to. I was the youngest person in the room. He wanted to know what I was up to, and what I was doing. That's how he reinvented him. That's how I believe he reinvented himself so many times, is he didn't get stuck in a certain way and think that the way that he did things was the only way to do things, and
yeah, I think we can see that, can't we? Because even in his sounds, I think you have to have a career like he had. You had to reinvent,
sure.
and I think from Public Us, we could see that all the time. Like there was a story that randomly Ricky Gervais, because Ricky was really good mates with David, and he said it was about 2 or 3 in the morning. And someone's knocking on his apartment door. Ricky opens the door, and it's Bowie. and he's excited because he's just heard this new band.
Yeah, I mean it was very much the vibe. You
Yeah,
know?
and Ricky's like, what? It's 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And he said that Dave was going, yeah, but you've got to listen to this band, and
Yeah.
I'll remember the band a second, and I'll
Sure.
tell you who it is. Canadian. It's just slipped my mind. There's 50 of them on stage. So Arcade Fire, of course.
You love
And Ricky's like, who is this? He's there going, it's this band called Arcade Fire.
Mm-hmm.
And Ricky's like, well, can we listen tomorrow? So I like that enthusiasm. So let's go back to sort of, I mean, we'll still keep Bowie there because of the example, but to you as an engineer then, when you're working with an artist, whether it's Bowie or whether it's someone else, does your input vary from artist to artist? So was Bowie very much like, right, this is what I want. Can we make this happen? What do you think? What do you think? Do a lot of artists say, what do you think?
I mean, certainly more so when you're in the production role. You know, that was a very collaborative experience. A lot of time it was just, you know, we had the big studio sessions where we were tracking like the basics, but then most of the time was me, Tony, and David in Tony's small studio, bouncing ideas off each other. You know, Tony co-producing with David, and then you know, it felt like very much a conversation. But artists vary. You know, some artists want you. You know, and when I produce, some artists want me to tell them everything. You know, want me to rearrange things. Want me to help, you know, write, want me to start from the demo phase, you know, but some artists come to me like, these are my demos, I want you to make it sound better, you know, just make it sound like this but better. It varies from artists, and I as a producer am very, you know, flexible in that way. I don't think every producer is, but I have great respect for artists and their craft, and I consider myself an artist in a different kind of way. But
so, what's your perfect if you could be completely self-indulgent or selfish? What's your perfect scenario? So, if I'm an artist and you're producing, what is your perfect scenario? What do you really love when you think, yes, an artist has just done this or created this? Which position do you like to be in?
I love producing, and I love a collaborative experience for sure. I love when we're bouncing ideas off of each, and that's what it is most of the time, you know. And I'm trusted to be like a coach and like a psychologist and all these sort of roles that I really love taking on in the experience. You know, it's really getting behind the psychology of the song and how that's meant to translate when it's put on a record. And I love that. I love being able to get involved, you know, from demos, you know, and work from there, you know, and see the record all the way through. That's what I love to do. That's my perfect scenario.
I like that. When you have a new project, how do you have sort of personal habits or things that you do beforehand? So do you go do a massive research, or if you don't know the artist's work, do you listen to everything they've ever done, or do you just go into that first day and go, right then, what's happening here? Do you have any sort of specific ways of approaching projects?
I do some research. I definitely listen to like the sort of evolution of them as an artist, if they've put out several records, and see kind of what direction they seem to be headed in. But I the majority of my time is spent with, you know, the demos and kind of getting in a meditative place and hearing what I hear is missing or what needs to be taken out or what, you know, it's kind of sculpting from the get-go. Some people love getting a ton of references, like who do you love, who do you want to listen to, but I find that can muddy the process at times. And sometimes people can, you know, they might just be talking about the snare sound on a record, you know, and they say, I want my record to sound like the new Tame Impala, you know, but it's like, well, you sound nothing like Tame Impala, but like, you know, okay, that's a cool drum sound, you know, so we can adapt that. And usually I can, you know, part and parcel what they're talking about. But I like to just, again, respect the arrangement of this song and let it kind of take on a life of its own and become what it needs to become. I learned that a lot from Tony, my mentor. You know, he would always say, like, listen to the arrangement, use your ears, you know, don't. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons he taught me in production.
Are you able to listen to music at home or in the car?
I'm glad you asked. Not really.
It's just come to me now. I was thinking, oh man, what a night. So my background is acting and theatre. And it winds my wife up. Because if we're at the theatre and we're watching something, and I'm thinking, oh, the lighting, the position, she's like, can you just stop ruining it? Just, enjoy it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sorry. Is that the same for you in music?
I listen to music on the subway always. Or when I'm walking around the city, I listen to music. When I'm home, I never have music on.
Really?
Like, I have friends come over and they're like, you want to turn on some music? I'm like, oh, God. Like, or if I go somewhere and I'm at a friend's house and they're playing music, I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't actually, like, engage in this conversation we're trying to have.
Do you find it's work for you?
It's not. I mean, I still love music, but it's like when I come home from working, at the end of the day, the last thing I want to do is listen to more music. Like I have a highly trained ear that can microscopically focus in on tiny things in a record, and so my brain, I think, just like I can't control it. It just goes there and starts analyzing and working things out, and it's just exhausting.
So I bet if you have friends who are artists and that, I bet they never bring their music to you, do they? Because they're like, no, she's gonna ruin this.
They do with kind of, shaking hands. Like, you want to listen? I feel like there's a lot. Even my close friends, I think, put a lot of prep work. I mean, all my friends are musicians, so I hear their stuff, but they usually don't just like toss it on at first.
They put it on. They say,
yeah. I listen to a lot of podcasts at home. That's better.
Yeah. I love podcasts. Yeah, that's easy for you. Yeah. I bet you're still listening to the sound though, and the mixing of a podcast.
Sure, absolutely.
Going, I can't. The levels on this are atrocious.
Oh, I've written strongly worded emails to some of my favorite podcasts and just let them know that some slight adjustments to their compression would be
This
helpful.
is the downside to your talent.
Sure.
So just tell us a couple of projects. Name a couple of projects that you've really enjoyed working on, or that you're working on at the moment that you're allowed to tell us about.
Sure. I just finished up 2 records. One is a London-based artist. She's called Pix. I mixed her record. I think it's a really great record. She's got 2 singles out. She's on 4AD, which is a label I've always loved. And I produced and engineered a record for an artist called Lady Lamb, which was quite a different record for me. She's a little bit different of an artist than I normally work with, but it's a really beautiful record.
Lady Lamb.
Lady Lamb
sounds very. Lady Lamb's not playing here now.
No, she's not. She's not based. She's New York based.
She's New York based. Okay.
She's on tour right now. It's a great record. And then I have some exciting stuff coming up for sure. I have a New York-based artist called Sloppy Jame that I'm working with and going to be producing her record that's going to be done in a cave, a wild cave. So this is like a
what?
Wild.
They want to go into a wild cave.
She wrote a record to be recorded in a cave with like an orchestra, like a whole situation. So this is like a huge challenge from an engineering standpoint and a safety standpoint.
Challenge or nightmare?
Challenge. We're going to have a lot of help, so.
Is this going to be the most unusual thing you've done?
Absolutely. I mean, no one's really ever done this in terms of, she wants a studio quality record recorded in a cave with multiple musicians.
Have you had any artists who, so like, I love Aphex Twin.
Sure, they're phenomenal.
And I love hearing the stories over the years that he's taken into the recording studio, food mixers, blenders, and have you had anything like that where artists said to you, right, I want to record me banging this desk or something like that? Do you get that often?
Yeah, that's my favorite. I mean, usually there's something like that on every record. I love that sort of stuff. It's like, I think if I didn't do what I did, I'd be sort of a Foley artist or something. I find that so like found sounds and making things sound like something that they're not.
Yeah, it's great. Foley breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So I worked in TV for quite a while, and I remember walking in. There was new studios in Manchester where the BBC are relocated, and I'd moved with them, working with them, and they had these 4K screens, which sort of 10 years ago was brand new.
Sure. And
I walked in because I was going to be recording the studio, and this Foley artist was there, and he'd said, "Oh, look at this," and it was a turtle in water. And I was like, oh, this is brilliant. The sound was brilliant. And he said, that's not the turtle making that. I went, what? And he showed me how he's doing it. And he had his hands in a bowl of water doing this.
Brilliant.
And I was there going, What? You're lying to me. You're like, I can't talk about Freddie because it broke my heart about nature programs ever since.
Sure. Oh gosh.
So you'd be a Foley artist if you were doing this.
It would be so fun. I love that. I love that sort of stuff.
I love that.
That's the art. That's the art in engineering to me.
So right now, then, in sort of wrapping things up, are you in that point of your career where you've worked hard enough and you've got that reputation that the work is just coming to you now?
I mean, there's downtime for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I certainly experience periods where it's slow, and I've also become more selective about who I work with. Like I
That's nice.
only work on projects that I really think I would add something and enjoy. I like a challenge, but somewhat enjoy the process. But there's I think there's downtime for anyone in this industry. I mean,
Definitely.
It's the nature of being freelance, where there's cycles of how the industry works. There's periods where every band's on tour, where everyone's doing festivals, so it's just sticking it out.
Is summer quiet in general?
Summer's quiet, but there will be people that do the festival cycle one year and then the next year they lay low and do a record. But summer's generally pretty quiet. It usually picks up in fall.
And how's the rest of the year? Have you got a few projects coming up?
I do, yeah.
And advice, because it is this kind of conference, and there are people out here who are interested in the industry. What would your advice be to people who, want to get into that side, get into the studio side of things?
Sure. I mean, I think get in a real studio, and see how a real professional session is run. And there's ways to do that even if you don't know much. I mean, you can learn a lot, on the internet nowadays, but there's stuff you can't learn watching a YouTube video or reading a book. You have to have a hands-on experience, and you can do that, by just calling up a local studio and saying, I just want to help out. Any way I can help. If you need me to fetch coffee for you, make tea, whatever, I just want to see how things are. And people, can be pretty open to that. You have to have the right temperament for it. But there's all these little things that go into like working in a recording studio or in that environment that you need to learn, that you can't learn, sitting in your dorm room or apartment. But there is, I think it's an exciting time for music. It's kind of like the Wild West. There's all the laws and rules we had have just been thrown out the window. And rather than be discouraged by it, I find it really exciting because it's giving power to a lot of, it's kind of dispersing the power a bit more. And, but if you have a plan B, like, forget it. Do your I mean, I don't have a plan B. Like, this is like what I always wanted to do. And
I like that.
It takes that determination because it's not easy. But if you love this and then just keep doing it. Like, the people that succeed are the people that just don't give up, and I think that's true for anything. And
that's why you're here now. Sure. And I think that's all credit to you. And the secret to it is effort and work, and you've clearly got a wonderful work ethic, and I wish you all the very best and huge success. And thank you so much, because I know these conferences and that get really busy, and you'll be pulled here, and you're speaking later on as well, aren't you?
I am. I think at like 3:30 or something.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
A huge round of applause for Erin Tonkon.
Thank you.
In fact, would you mind signing our trash table, please?
Sure.
We have all our guests sign it, and we've got quite. You probably don't recognise any of these, but these are some British bands and things like that.
I love British bands.
Who knows? You might even one day be mixing and engineering this
Sure
lab.
thing.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you to you.